Welcome to TrailManners, the podcast so dedicated to mountain trails and running that they broadcast out of a 78 Volkswagen bus in the mountains. Who does that? Eric and Joel are your hosts and will bring you the trail life as you may have not heard it before. You hear about everything from gear reviews, nutrition to keep you upright and moving forward, and they'll even bring guests into the bus for conversations that you won't hear anywhere else. It's time for some running adventures on a higher elevation. The old 78 Volkswagen bus is fired up and headed to the mountains. Here are your hosts for TrailManners, proudly representing the 801 with their passion and love for the trails, Eric Manning and Joel Hatch.
Welcome to the TrailManners podcast, episode number 102. Today, we're going to be talking with Triple Crown runner Ben Light. If this is your first time listening, then thanks for coming. The TrailManners podcast is produced every week for your enjoyment, and show notes are found at trailmanners.com. Come back often, and please feel free to add the podcast to your favorite RSS feed or iTunes. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at TrailManners. All links are in the show notes. Now let's get after it. All right, welcome back to the TrailManners podcast. We are on episode 102, sitting in Studio 78 at Mount Ogden Park, home of the Ogden Trail Running Festival.
That's right. Oh, nice.
Like that?
Play. I like that.
I like that, right? So we've got a guest in the bus today in Studio 78. We've been dying to get on the show.
Yes.
Literally, for a long time. Worked out, drove down from Heber City. We got Ben Light with us today. Ben, how are you?
Doing good. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thanks for coming down. We're super excited about this because we cannot, I'm jumping into it, we cannot wrap our heads around a 200-mile race.
No.
We've both done 100s.
Right.
We still can't wrap our head around those, even though we've done them. But 200 has had us questioning things for over a year. Anytime it gets brought up, we just kind of look at each other and shake our heads. So
Yeah.
we're going after you today. We got to figure this out.
That's good.
So give us a little background just of yourself, kind of how you got into running before we get into 200s. Give us a little background.
Not a problem. I'll just give you like a real quick Cliff Notes version. So I haven't been in ultra running all that long, about 4 or 5 years.
Okay.
Very interested in just the whole adventure. I like adventure, and so one day I was just moved to Utah. I've always been into fitness. Started to do a lot of triathlon training and stuff prior to living in Utah, and then doing some of these Ragnars and just doing some running and stuff. But I hadn't even done a half marathon yet. And so me and my brother were hiking Mount Timpanogos, and just as we were getting up towards the saddle, all of a sudden this older gentleman with no shirt on, just some shorts and a double-fisted handhelds in both hands, which I just assume now looking back on it is probably Davy Crockett.
And through my head, I'm trying to figure out who that was too.
Yeah,
no
and
shirt.
so I'm like, man, this guy is just one stud, dude. I was just like this older gentleman just coming down. I'm like, hey, can I bother you and ask you how long? And he said it was like 2:12 or something. I just remember something about 2:10 over that stuck out in my head, and I'm just like, man, I want to do that. And so I started to get into trail running. Ended up on a Ragnar team with one of the actually bountiful trail runners up here, and one of my good friends, Matt, and basically then he got me introduced to the Wrangler group, and then started hanging out with all these just bad A's, just
bad influences is what the ultra runners are.
Ran my first 50K, and then got kind of a random email asking, actually, and this kind of goes into everything, is I used to do some backcountry skiing with Stephen Jones.
Okay.
And so Stephen Jones was telling me, hey, I'm going to do this Tahoe 200, and this is 2014. I'm going to do this Tahoe 200, He's telling us all about it on this backcountry trip, and I'm like, that is ridiculous. And so I got a random email from a friend that had a coworker that had a daughter-in-law that's from Georgia coming out to run the Tahoe 200 and need pacers. Would I be interested? I said, sure. So let alone signed up to be this pacer, showed up, ended up being the only pacer for this this girl. Her name's Lauren Kajorkins from Georgia, and so ended up, all said and done, ended up pacing her 100 miles almost.
What?
Out of the Tahoe 200 the very first year.
Whoa.
And I had the bug. Came back, paced my friend Nate Younger at the Bear for almost 50 miles.
Right.
2 weeks later. And then 2 weeks later after that, did my first 50-miler at TNF 50.
Okay.
And just kind of got the bug. The next year going into that, Stephen Jones convinced me to run the Tahoe 200. So I messaged the RD, the race director, Candace Burt, and said, hey, I am interested in running 2015's Tahoe 200. And she said, at that time, you needed a qualifier of 100. And so I signed up for the Tahoe 200 before I had even done 100. And then went and did the Bryce 100.
Oh, was your qualifier?
For the qualify.
Nice.
So it wasn't like you wanted to do 100, but you had to do the 200.
And it wasn't necessarily the 200 that was the catch appeal. I grew up in Reno, Nevada, and Tahoe 200 went around through the Rubicon, where I went jeeping all the time. Mm-hmm. It went around Desolation, which I went backpacking all the time. It went around. It pretty much did the TRT. It went all the way around Lake Tahoe, where I grew up going every summer and every winter for skiing. And I'm just like, to run around that lake in the mountains and to have that kind of like just that under my belt, that's awesome. And so that was the appeal. It wasn't the distance. That was the appeal.
Kind of going home.
And then after that first one, oh my gosh, I'm hooked. It's awesome.
So what year was that? 2015?
That was 15. So I've done the Tahoe 200, 2015, 2016, and now 2017.
Okay. Have you done any other like 100 milers in that time frame as well?
I did the Zion 100.
Okay.
And that's it. I've done 200's.
Right.
I've done Zion and Bryce.
How many 200's have you done then?
I have completed 5.
It's 1,000 miles.
I know.
Quick math, right?
So the obvious question is, I mean, do you just have something against 100-mile distance now where you're just like, that's not even worth it? It's not even worth packing my bags for?
So I have one gear on my running style.
What's that?
It's like kind of grinding.
Right.
Just like this grind. And I can keep that speed from beginning to end. Most people go out strong and then kind of pitter off, and then I start catching them and passing them at the end. So I figured out that if I want to be successful in ultra running and like place well, I need to go after the farther distances because I only have one speed.
Gotcha. Fair enough.
And the shorter the distance, the farther back in the back I am finishing.
Right. That makes sense. I guess that's a good way to justify that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I go slow, so I'm going to have to go 200.
Oh, man.
Right. So I'm going to just throw out some numbers here, and then we can really get into it. But so this year, this is 2017.
Okay.
In August 10th, you did the Bigfoot 200, 69 hours, 17 minutes. I'm not trying to giggle, but these numbers are just blowing me away. Tahoe 200 was a month later, 9/8, September 8th, 71 hours, 33 minutes. And then lastly, the Moab 200, which is really 240 miles. That was in October 13, so another month away about. 85 hours and 3 minutes. Combined time, 3 races, 225 hours and 53 minutes, which I will give you was second overall.
Third.
Third overall?
Third
okay,
overall.
Third overall for the Triple Crown, which 11 people completed.
That's
of amazing.
24 or 23 that started it.
Yeah, and I think the second, after the Tahoe, I think there's like 15 left, and then the last one lost 4
That
more,
last one was brutal. it was brutal on the body because your body's just had enough. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, 200's not. I mean, but 238. I mean, that's where you break down, right?
Oh, yeah. Because you just did 400 miles before that.
That's just I still can't wrap. What was your, out of those three, I'm not looking at time, was that the hardest one, the Moab?
It was the hardest one for me. I don't do as well in the heat, I guess you can say. And that first day was definitely hot and exposed, no real cover. And then you only had 2 aid stations up to 55 miles. So you had your first one like 10 miles in, and then your second one was at mile 35, and then you had to go up to mile 55.
Okay.
And so I made a mistake not pulling my bladder out of my pack when I filled it up at mile 10.
Gotcha.
I really hadn't been drinking that much. It was night. It was cold. That's the thing about Moab. It's cold in the morning.
It is.
So you're just not drinking as much. And so I was like, I probably didn't drink too much. And so I just left it inside my pack, which squeezed it a little bit, filled it, topped it off, didn't put much in it. And so 5 miles outside of 35, aid station, which is called Breaking Bad, I ran out of water. And then I started to, being 5 miles out and only having I usually carry a front bottle that has my scratch in it, concentrated. And so it was like half gone already. So I knew I probably had about 5 gulps with 5 miles. So I just started rationing and just taking a gulp every mile. Then coming in, I was already in that bonk stage of like depleted, dehydrated. You don't even feel the sweat basically because it's just evaporating off you as fast as you're sweating.
And that was mile 55?
That was mile 35.
35. So you're
35.
bonking. At 30, so you only had like 200 and something to go. So
and that's a psychological, like,
it's a mind game right there. Right?
I got to rally. I got a little ways to go.
Came into that, you're like mother trucker.
So that was the hard. What was your, out of the three? What would you consider? Is Tahoe, is that your favorite one? Just because that's where you grew up?
Tahoe's my favorite, just because it's my bread and butter.
Okay.
It's one of these races that I really do consider I'll probably doing every year.
Okay.
And, you hear about some of the different ultra runners running Wasatch like 20 years.
Right.
I'd love to be that person that's done Tahoe the last 20 years straight.
That'd be amazing.
But if you did it 10 years, you'd catch the 20-year Wasatch
you
runners.
Would.
You're doubling up on them. So.
See, that's a good point.
Yeah, right. I mean, apples to apples here. Right.
That's true.
So let's go back to, let's just get in, like Bigfoot 200 was the first one, but you've done them in the past, so it's not like you were going into Bigfoot without a 200.
Bigfoot, I've crewed and attempted the year before. So I crewed I've been to Bigfoot every year since it started.
Okay.
I crewed DJ the first year.
Okay.
That was his first 200. And then last year, we both were attempting the double. And so I started out on Bigfoot, ran out of water, started going through some major dehydration, and ended up during a nice throwing up session going up over a pass, actually popped a rib while I was like muscle spasming and throwing up at the same time. And so I didn't realize what it was. I've never popped a rib before. And so it took another like 2 hours to go the next 5 miles to the aid station. They had already been given my bib number by some of the other passing racers. And so I didn't know what was wrong with me. The EMT really didn't know what was wrong with me because I just knew my back right side hurt. And they were thinking kidney, so they radioed the RD, Candace. Candace is just like, if we don't know what it is, he doesn't know what it is, and it hurts, let's just go ahead and pull him for safety reasons.
Right.
So I got pulled. I didn't argue. It was the right thing to do. Ended up going to the finish line where my wife met me. She's a massage therapist, and
bonus.
it's very much a bonus. She comes into play into the Triple Crown more than you'd ever even know.
I'm sure.
But she's like feeling around on my back, and she's like, I really think you got a rib out. And so she's like, eventually she just got me to like trust her. And she pops my rib back in, and it was instant relief.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I was just like devastated, but there was just no way to knowing that. So I ended up going back in, crewing DJ, pacing him another like about 30 miles. I had already done about 35 when I got pulled. It was just right at the beginning of the race. Did another 30 with him. Saw him to his third place finish last year, and then I went back out, and there was a gentleman that I met at Tahoe the year before that helped me while I was going through this situation. He ended up going and running a mile to get water at a spring and come back to me to help me out.
Oh, wow.
And it was a really nice thing that he did. It's something that you don't really see in other racing like triathlon and road racing, but in ultra you get this type of community that has that type of personality and traits. And so comes back to me, gives me the water, helps me to the spring and stuff. So I went back out after DJ and paced him the last 30 miles back in, too.
So you still got about 100 miles to run in that weekend.
So I got about 100 miles of running at Bigfoot, but
right.
And then I went on a month later to do the Tahoe.
Right.
So I apologize right off the bat. We're going to be jumping around all over here because there's just too much to miss.
There's a lot of fun stuff, too.
So let me ask you this, because we always on this show, we talk about the trail running community, the ultra community, how it's tight-knit. It's kind of like what you're talking about. But I'd imagine that the 200-mile community, you have your own community within that, because I see the same names.
Yeah.
You see a lot of the same faces. People say hi to you, and you're not next. You know that they look familiar, but you don't really know their name, but they know your name.
Right.
Some lady came up to me just here at Moab, and when we were out there running, she goes, "Are you Ben Light?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she goes, "You saved my race last year at by telling me not to drop at this, or telling me some ideas of doing this and stuff like that." I'm not exactly. She looks familiar. I can't exactly remember, but I guess I said something that affected her and that helped her out.
Right.
That's awesome. Because every time I see the pictures and everything, it's like names even on the finishers thing. It's like this
like
core group.
It's like the niche of the niche.
Yeah, it really is. Like ultra runners get this thing. Oh, you're 100 milers and you've got this crew, but you jump it up to the 200 area.
Well, it shrinks
kind of
even more.
Shrinks even to that circle a little bit more. It seems like.
Yeah.
What's Candace like? The RD.
Oh, she's a fireball.
Yeah.
Holy cow. Yeah, that's somebody you need to have on the.
You would have to be a fireball to stay motivated and organized.
Yeah.
Oh, very organized.
Right.
She does a very good job on her races. Very well marked. She really cares a lot about how the markings are. There's been some hiccups in some of the beginning races, but what race doesn't have their hiccups in and stuff like that. But overall, the volunteers, let me just say this. I'd have to say Bigfoot's probably the best for volunteers. The volunteers at Bigfoot, they're out there a 200 miler. So if you're a volunteer the second half of a race, you're out there for 2 days or even a day and a half, depending.
That's a good point, right?
Yeah.
And so
it's so spread out.
It's a big deal. You volunteer. It's these guys are they definitely need an applaud for how much that they give back to their racing.
So that brings up a whole other set of questions on the volunteer side. So if you're expecting to see runners come through your aid station over the course of 48 hours, how do you stock and prepare that aid station? Because you're not going to make PB&J and leave it out.
No,
right? In Moab.
So you get some PB&J, you'll get some quesadillas, just like a regular race up to probably about mile 50. At mile 50 is when the real good food starts to really kick in.
Oh, tell us.
So Bigfoot this year, I ate 11 hamburgers.
Oh my gosh!
So we're talking about calorie intake. People ask me, how many calories do you intake during these races? I'm like, I'm the wrong person to ask.
Yeah, exactly. I don't care.
I was like,
just get in the pile.
I know exactly how many calories I'm going to intake in between aid stations, but at an aid station, it's like, okay, what's on the menu? And
so are they fixing stuff to order? Do they set the menu a mile out for you guys to look at?
There's one that does at Tahoe.
See,
that's awesome.
Post it on a tree.
Isn't that a good idea?
And it says, this is what you have to look forward to. Think about what you want when
exactly.
you get in and let us know.
That'd be great if they had an order slip too.
Because I'd imagine at these races, it's not like 100's or other races where it's like people don't go into an aid station thinking, okay, I got to get in and out. just fill my water. You're like, I'm coming in, I'm hanging out, I'm taking care of business. I mean, is
Yeah,
that kind of more what it's like too?
You'll get a lot of first-time 200s that they're more concerned about finishing.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
You know, and that's how I've always been up until like this Triple Crown was it. I was racing like Bigfoot. I was racing Tahoe. I was racing. Started out racing Moab, and then went into pretty much kind of a survival mode for a little while, and then went back to racing to make sure I like got my third place, because there was a gentleman that was about 11 hours behind me that was actually in front of me at Moab. He was 11 hours behind me overall standings, but I couldn't let him beat me by 11 hours at Moab, so I had to.
You had to get on it.
I had to start chasing him.
These numbers just baffle me.
I know.
I'm not kidding. He couldn't beat me by 11 hours. Can you imagine some of the listeners out there that just aren't into
Okay, so you're at the point now where you're racing these. You're comfortable enough. So when you go into an aid station, how do you approach that now? Let's break it up. The first 100 miles.
In racing mode, okay, I pull in. If it's a cruise station where my wife is and everything like that, she knows exactly. I have everything dialed in. So I basically hand her my pack. She's basically usually I had another crew with her and stuff like that, either my daughter or another volunteer. So basically they fill up the water. They have a 3-liter bladder every time. Fill it all the way up, do my scratch, and then I have pre-bags loaded with that particular segment where they pull out the old stuff, put in the new stuff, take out the garbage, put in, and everything. Right. And then while that's happening, I'm basically telling the aid station, okay, this is what I'm interested in eating, and I'm just pounding down like a hamburger, put back on my pack,
and then
pound down whatever I can, and just have something in my hand going out of the aid station.
Okay.
So 5 minutes.
Wow.
Oh my gosh, that's a lot in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So yeah, 5 minutes was my average time.
That's amazing.
Going into Tahoe.
Wow. That's like NASCAR, man. I mean, when you're
pretty
talking
much
serious
is.
like that.
Yeah.
Well, you got someone taking care of you. So
that'd
you
be
can
fast for a 100-miler.
Oh, for
you know
sure.
what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
If you're doing 5 minutes at each aid station.
When you start running into issues like feet issues, blisters or anything like that, or something needs to be worked on like the IT band and stuff, then you start to needing to take a little bit extra time. So
so did that happen? Does that happen often, or do you? I hate to even say this, but do your feet and stuff, do they get used to it?
Yeah, like it really all depends. My feet were perfect at Bigfoot until towards the end. Towards the end, we had about 3 or 4 river crossings that we had to go through. I decided that I was in race mode, and I was just going to just not even worry about it. So I had Dry Max. I was wearing Dry Max. And I was wearing the Temps from Ultra. I ended up getting just a little bit of some blistering just because there's some steep sections right at the end of Bigfoot, and put a lot. And plus, I was huffing it, so I ended up getting a little bit of some blistering right towards the end of Bigfoot, which compounded at Tahoe, because just because there's only 3.5 weeks from the time you finish Bigfoot, there's 3.5 weeks until you actually toe the line at Tahoe, so things just aren't totally healed up, and then just they kind of blew up a little bit right about mile like 120, and then so I started having some blistering and started taping and stuff like that.
Okay.
So nothing really big, just taping and maintenance.
What's your was Bigfoot this year? Was that like your PR for a 200?
Yeah. Oh,
was
yeah.
It?
69 at Bigfoot. I was very happy with that, and I could have probably got a little bit faster, but that's always hindsight,
Yeah.
Like I could have done this and this and this, but and so I really do think it makes even a faster time. A 65 would be even attainable. So I think if I ever do it again, that'd probably be more of a goal, I guess you could say. And then Tahoe, I know I can do a sub 60 if the stars aligned.
Wow. So when you say 69 and sub 60, is that continuous movement, or are you taking a nap somewhere?
That's still 3 hours worth of sleeping. So I do 90-minute naps. You can hit 2 REM cycles and a 90-minute sleep cycle, and 2 REM cycles is really what the body kind of needs to really function really well. An average person, I think, they say hits like 4 a night. So you hit your first 2 in the first 90 minutes, and then you're kind of come out of it for a couple hours, and then you go back in, and then you come out of it, and then you wake up. So to have half your, like, the core of your sleep done in the first 90 minutes, wake up, that's psychologically, that is the most brutal part of the 200s, is the actually waking up from a 90-minute nap, 130 miles in, second day of running, and then just getting back out there, especially in the cold, dark. Usually, if you're sleeping at night, that's like you got to dig deep, and a good kick in the pants, and a nice red line with a lot of caffeine.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. Is that, to me, that it would be. It's just like waking up knowing.
Right.
I could still do this, right?
Yeah.
Oh man, I could close my eyes again, and this is where I want to be. Or no, I gotta
Believe me,
march
it's
on.
like, I'll tell my wife, I'm like the first year she crewed me, I went to sleep, and then I woke up, and it was like 3 hours later, and I was like, what? And I like freaked out, and I was like, why is it 3 hours later? And she goes, well, I woke you up in an hour and a half, and you said you wanted to go back to sleep for another hour and a half. I'm like, you asked me if I wanted to go back to sleep for another hour and a half? Of course, I have no recollection of this. You don't ask me. You make me get up.
Right.
It's like you smack me until I get up.
So when you do sleep, you sleep at the aid stations, though, when
Yeah.
you do?
Yeah.
'Cause, now, some people I've seen that will sleep wherever
On the
they're
trail.
at, right?
Yeah.
Now, to me, that would be scary.
That is
like
nerve-wracking, because
Right.
I've tried to kind of like lay down and take a little nap every once in a while, but it's just like when you're driving in your car and you're like so tired at the wheel, and you're like, oh, I got to pull over. And you pull over and you just sit there. Or like you like trade driving with your wife so she can drive while you take a nap. And the minute you get in that passenger seat, you're just like, I can't sleep.
Right.
So I have to pull in. I have to, and I can't do it during the day either. I need to sleep at night.
Okay.
Are you able to fall asleep like
I'm
that?
gone.
Really?
So I have Normatec boots, and so I have a rooftop tent on my Jeep, and I'll have my wife set that up, and then I'll get up in there and I'll throw on the Normatec boots and set it on a.
So what are those? Explain. Those.
They're air compression boots that
Right.
actually help flush lactic acid and help blood flow. So it's kind of
like
like
a
getting a
Venus
massage,
return, right?
a soft massage while you're sleeping. So I can
Right.
actually they have a battery back. I'll take like a Go Zero up there and plug it in and basically run an hour and a half cycle while I'm sleeping. It doesn't even faze me.
Wow.
This is just mind-blowing
See,
stuff.
that's just more details that I never even thought about.
Yeah.
And it's your strategy. Not everybody does it. I mean, some of these 200s are hard. In my mind, they're way more hardcore because, one, they won't have
Because they're
crew.
200 miles.
2, they'll just do the they'll have their sleeping bag, and they'll pull it out, and they'll just go into on a cot.
You've got the
and
glamping
lay
thing
down.
going on, right?
Yeah.
he does.
So it's like I need all the help I get, I guess.
Now, are there people that don't sleep? Or, I mean, you're forced to at 70, 60, 80, whatever hours.
You're not forced to do anything. You can decide. There's a lot of people. There's very few. I'd even say I can't even think of one. Maybe even this last Moab the 240, the winner, she said that she slept for 20 minutes, and that's pretty light. I mean, that's to me that's just like a cat nap. She did do it fast, but still 58 hours. So most people that try, there's every race there's always these people that like they get to about 150 and they go, I really think I can do it. I really think I can do it. But when their brain decides to switch from processing coherency to totally, we call it in zombie mode, it happens like it could happen within a mile. So just to give you an example, without like throwing anybody under the bus or embarrassing anybody, we came across a runner She was in a very top position, in Bigfoot this year. And she was so close. She just needed it. She's second to the last aid station. And
But that means something different.
She lost. She snapped. Like, it was the third night, and
oh my gosh.
we came across one of my good friends, Derek Little. He was contracted by Ultra to do they're doing a kind of a documentary on me and Mike for these Triple Crown. And he was waiting for us on a ridge, and he came across this racer, and she was just wandering. And she's on the ridge. You got to understand, this is a full-on mountain. It's on a ridge, has cliffs.
Oh my goodness!
And clouds rolled in the Cascades, and it was a really cold cloud. We came out of that aid station in our puffies. Like, I ran that whole section in a puffy because it was so cold. Just the temperatures were changing, and she was up there, and so he came across her, and she didn't know. She barely knew her name.
Oh my goodness!
Barely knew where she was at. He's trying to point her in the right direction. And did you go to this? Because the aid station was an out and back.
Oh.
And did you go down there? He said yes, but he's like, I don't really think she did. I think she missed the out and back of the turn. I mean, there's tons of these stories. Something happened at Tahoe. Mike came across a runner that totally lost sense of direction, and he was in the top position, and because he just wanted to take it all the way in without doing the sleep. And the minute it's usually that third night, they can get through that second.
Oh my gosh!
That third night, it's like they're gone. Like this girl thought she was in a time warp. She's talking about some time warp in another dimension. She threw her trekking poles off a cliff.
Oh my God!
Luckily, she didn't throw herself off the cliff.
Yeah, right.
You know, I mean, like, it's scary. It's really scary stuff. A lot of people get lost the third night. That's when they have the most instances at Bigfoot.
Holy cow!
Because they just, even though you see a flag, sometimes it doesn't register. Sometimes it just doesn't. You know, if maybe you see a deer trail and you think that's the trail. There's people have gotten off of trail, like off the course, miles and miles and miles, and
holy cow!
And it's just like that a whole new dynamic to the whole entire 200 race. But I'd have to say that third day is when the endorphins do kick in, if you are sleeping, and it's pretty kind of unreal. You know, in my mind, it's kind of a drug in a way, to where you're just like, this is so awesome.
Huh. Man. So most of the people who get lost, are they the ones that are trying to go the whole race without sleep?
I really think the people that are getting lost towards the end are there's some type of sleep deprivation going on. Either they've tried to sleep and haven't been successful hitting those REM cycles to get that ability to just process. It's a big deal. I mean, even a 20-minute nap will help that your mind kind of realign.
Yeah.
So,
do you see now? Would that be just another advantage, really, to having a pacer at that point, just to kind of keep you not just on track, but kind of safe, right?
Safe and keeping you eating, keeping you. I paced a couple different people, and I've seen them fall asleep standing up. You know, just totally lights out. Some people can't even remember the segment. You know, it's just like driving. You know, you get home, you're like, oh my gosh, I just went 10 miles and I don't even remember it.
Right.
Yeah, it's that exact same thing.
It's
like
so nice to go 10 miles and not remember it. Right? I mean, just in your daily run, you get back to the car, you're like, right on. I got 10 miles and I don't remember that.
Let's do that again.
We need to figure out a way of doing that. We'll be millionaires.
That's right. So what's it like to, I mean, is it difficult to get pacers at stuff like this? Because that is
What's the commitment level like? Because it's a little higher, right?
Yeah. So Bigfoot's obviously the hardest for us here in Utah. Bigfoot being, it's almost a 14-hour drive away. You're isolated. It's that's probably the hardest one. This year, I ended up with just one pacer besides having my wife pace me in the last section, and it was just a volunteer that knew somebody from here that sent out a little little blurb saying, "Hey, I got a friend going up to do Bigfoot," and this particular girl, she responded, and I didn't even really realize that she was going to kind of show up. I knew a little bit, but maybe, and all of a sudden I pulled into an aid station. She was there. She paced me 10 miles, and then she had to go.
Wow.
But it,
It's better than nothing.
that's a very nice act,
Yeah.
Right.
Not
There should be a website service about that. It's like hire a pacer. It's just
Yeah.
especially these 200s. That's
Jenna Lynn, you need to talk to Jenna Lynn. Jenna Lynn's talked about total, like, this whole pimping out pacing.
Yeah. No. It's like the Uber of pacing.
Yeah, exactly.
Swipe right.
Well,
Swipe right, swipe left. Yeah.
well, because like if you pace a 100-miler, right? Because we've done that. You pace somebody like, hey, here's my chart. On a good, if I'm doing really well, I'll be there at 2 a.m. If I'm having a bad day, it's 4 a.m.
Yeah.
Well, then you're saying, okay, well, I'm going to be there at 1 a.m. because I don't want to miss you.
Right.
But at a 200,
Well, it could be.
it could be like a 10-hour
It's
window.
big, yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Or I could be like at Tahoe, my first 100 miles. I was 3 hours ahead of my fastest time.
Oh.
Yeah, that's
So-
that'd be a difficult. But I mean, your mindset, because if you run a 100-mile race as a runner, you've got all the things to worry about. But in the back of your mind too, you're wondering if your pacer's going to be there.
Yeah.
You kind of like that. I would imagine a 200-mile, you just basically need to understand, hey, I can't worry about anything else.
Have you done
right?
one by yourself?
Not that Bigfoot would have been the closest thing.
Right.
Okay.
So,
So you have someone for like 10, 15 miles.
yeah, that 10-mile section, and then Brittany at the end for the last 13.
Right.
Okay. See, and I'm thinking when he says the last aid station, I'm thinking 5-6 miles, and it's like 13. So
Right.
Yeah.
that's a little different.
The spacing on these is a lot different, for sure.
So what kind of time do you put into planning for the race? Like you've got, say it's Bigfoot 200, right? I mean, your spreadsheet, your charts, your stuff. I mean, you've got to be going a lot of time into planning, or else you could really be in trouble in that race, right?
You'd think so.
Nice, I like it. Just on a whim.
Got to
Just
stop at the quickie mark
yeah,
before the start
exactly.
line.
get the Bahama Mama.
I'm pretty like so. Tahoe was probably the most organized one for myself, and then I saw how much even my organization kind of goes out the window once the race starts and charts and stuff. But the chart is the most important thing for pacing and everything else. And it's basically, it gives you a base.
Okay.
Right.
So what I'll do is I'll just basically take all the aid stations, the distances, and the verts, because the vert depends on will make a difference between speed.
Yeah.
And just basically calculate that from there and do 3 different. What I want is the second and the middle time, and then a fast and a slow average, and then send that off and make assignments for my pacers, and then send that off to the team, and they can just kind of gauge off of that. And if there's cell service, Brittany can update the team and just basically say he's ahead of schedule, he's behind schedule.
Gotcha.
Right.
But other than that, and that just tells me how much food to take. I usually eat about 200 to 250 calories every hour. So, and just it depends on how much distance I cover.
What do those calories consist of generally for you?
So for me, the most probably the average calories that I do are Cliff Bars.
Okay.
I really like the different variety of Cliff Bars.
Right.
But Glucose is a sponsor of
Okay.
mine, and Glucose by far for me is like a game changer. It's basically a most like a Tailwind or most of these different carb style drinks or goos and stuff like that, like a dextrose and stuff like that, the sugars. This is actually full on glucose, and they come in different forms, and so I want to make sure I'm getting about 30 to 40 milligrams of glucose within that 250 calories per hour. So
Okay.
I try to switch it up like crazy, but that's what my nutrition is in between. It's like kind of like a keep the sugars high. I take Scratch for the electrolytes and stuff like
Right.
that, and then after that, basically it's the big fats and proteins and
Mm-hmm.
the carbs are in the aid station.
Right.
And then my go-to right now is mashed potatoes with bacon and top ramen. I like the sodium that comes from the top ramen.
That's a total
and then,
dude
And then
meal right there,
Yeah, right.
right?
hamburgers.
Yeah, see?
Hamburgers with lots of ketchup, mayonnaise, and mustard to help me chew it.
Okay.
Just because you just don't produce the saliva that you need
Right.
So do you have? I mean, you'd imagine you would, but do you have stomach issues through this?
to.
Where
Oh, yeah.
it's, like just like 100-miler. I mean, that's the only thing I can come close to even thinking about.
Yeah.
But
So I have, I've had almost in every one of my races had stomach issues up until this year when I kind of dialed it in with Bigfoot and Tahoe. Didn't have stomach issues at all. And what I found was eat every 30 minutes. It's almost
Okay.
like having a food IV.
I like that.
It's like Homer Simpson having like this hamburger donut IV, right? Just going in.
Well,
I
you
like
think
it.
about it. People will go for so long without digesting food, so their stomach goes empty. Their blood is going to their extremities, and then they throw on like a big 200-calorie bar or something into their stomach, and then all of a sudden their body's like, I got to digest that, and it just all depends, you know.
Right.
But if you're always digesting, where your body's always allocating blood to your stomach, and you just kind of keep this slow cycle going and not throwing a log on the fire, but keeping some kindling, just
Right.
constantly feeding this fire. That's where I found out that the stomach issues, and you staying hydrated for me. My stomach issues in Moab came from just getting dehydrated.
Right.
I was still eating, but it was just the dehydration.
So do you guys share, like in this 200-mile circle, do you guys share information? Because I imagine there's people that are coming in that want to do it, have no clue what they're doing.
So when Eric does the 240 next
Yeah,
year,
right.
Yeah.
he's the
well,
newbie.
number one, it's hot, so we're out.
This, I mean, just like any type of ultra racing, I think in the 200s, there's a more of a community to finish.
Yeah.
Okay.
More so than to race.
Right.
Even in the race manuals, it talks about this is more of a individual finishing event more so than a competition event kind of
Right.
a thing. And so Candace's Facebook groups are very tight knit. So you got all three of them have their own Facebook group, and there's just a lot of Q&A.
Gotcha.
All year long. People are signing
That's
up
awesome.
and joining it, and basically Q&Ing all the different people that have ran it before and getting ideas and stuff, asking questions.
Is that kind of how you did it, or because you knew friends, or were you just kind of like, I'm just going for it? I know
I just
myself.
kinda
Gonna wing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there wasn't
I
as
like
much information. You had
That's
the
true.
1 year before, which I paced and saw what worked and what didn't. Second year I went in, like I borrowed a friend's RV. I went all in, and then saw that I probably went a little overkill and have toned it back and stuff like that. So you learn as you go, and that's the Triple Crown. Like, I really didn't unpack the whole entire time from Bigfoot to Moab, and I had everything all just consolidated.
Right.
It's like it's pretty easy to know exactly what you're going to need, and just try to be as minimalist as possible.
Well, and especially if you're heading into these aid stations that are stocked with good menus of burgers and whatever else. I mean, that's got to be a huge advantage,
It
too,
is.
to where you're not packing that heavy, solid food or relying on crew at times as well.
So what are you carrying on yourself? Because you've already explained what you carry food-wise. What other items do you have in your pack?
So you're basically, you're going to always carry your headlamp, because you never know where you're going to end up
Right.
within the segment at night or daytime. So you got your headlamp, you got usually backup batteries, and then mainly it's exterior outer shell.
Mhm.
And so I'll take a just like a waterproof windbreaker style with me. I'll take a buff, gloves
Mhm.
just for at night and stuff like that. Half the stuff arm sleeves. So half the stuff I take.
You never use.
Sometimes you use, sometimes you don't.
Right.
But you just never know. It's the mountains. You're
Right.
hitting elevation, and you're over a 3-day period. Weather can change.
So they don't have like required gear at all on these races, or do they have some required gear like a
You're
rain shell?
required. There is required gear. basically, the biggest required gear is probably like your coats and your outer layers.
Okay.
To take, I take a first aid kit.
That's a good idea.
So just for like blisters,
Right.
I always take Advil. I always take sunscreen, bug repellent just in case.
So give us an example, and I know it's going to be varied because of the races, but I won't say average, but what's an approximation between like aid stations, right? So can you be out there for 7 hours or 5 hours?
The closest aid stations, I think, or some of them are like 7 miles, but very few. There's maybe less than a handful for all 3 races.
Okay.
The average one, I would have to say, is between as low as 13, but more like 20, 21 for the higher. It seemed like Moab was constantly between 18 and 20.
Okay. And so
almost all of them.
time-wise, that's like what? Could be
5 hours.
5, 6 hours.
Yeah.
That's what
Okay.
my average was. Is like if I was doing, depending on the vert, it was between 5 and 6 hours. Closer at the beginning of the race, it could be as low as 4 hours, but nothing lower than that. And then with a lot of vert, you're looking at about 6 hours.
So is that difficult where you're doing a 200-mile race? You're so spread out. You don't have as many in the field, so you can go for
6 hours without
6
seeing
plus
somebody.
without seeing anybody, right?
Yeah, and you see other racers sometimes. When Tahoe, I got to the point where I was alone a lot, just because, except for my pacer, because I was up in the top 10 pretty much from about mile 40, and so we kind of stayed up there. But Bigfoot, I actually took it easier at the beginning. Kind of went back to mid-pack, and then I enjoyed just kind of picking them off as I was
Reeling them in as you go.
After about 120, I just started let's see how many I can get on this
Right.
one. Let's see how many, and it just kind of kept my mind busy, kept me motivated since I
Right.
didn't have that many. I didn't have pacers and stuff like that, and just trying to work my way back up. So after taking the sleeps, and everybody else thought that they could take sleeps more towards the end, and were just deteriorating fast.
I think that'd be hard. Harder, maybe, taking a sleep way late in a race.
I
trying to
wouldn't
get
back up.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Trying to get back up
that'd be
and
good.
having
it
that.
just hurts that much harder.
Yeah,
it
I mean,
does.
it hurts that much worse.
So I got to say, if you keep talking about your wife crewing for something like this is like 3-4 days worth of just waiting and hanging
weeks.
out, right?
Bigfoot's the hardest to crew for. I'll just tell you right now. Bigfoot more so even than Moab or Tahoe. Tahoe's very nice. It's like you almost have civilization between every aid station.
Okay.
You come back down to the lake, you come back over, and you go back up towards another pass because it kind of just follows that rim.
Right.
Bigfoot, you kind of follow. You're basically following a mountain range that winds, and you're kind of leapfrogging from one. I guess you call it chain of a ridge, and then you got basically a gully and another chain of a ridge, and there's no real roads that the aid stations are on one side, and then the other side, then the other side, then the other side, and bouncing back and forth because you're going down and up, and basically, and so your crew is driving around Mount St. Helens. Then they're coming back around Mount St. Helens, hitting the next one, then coming back around and out and basically coming up another ravine.
Oh.
So my biggest advice for crew is always take a gas can on Bigfoot because you're doing that many miles. So Brittany would have everything ready for me. I'd come in, basically 15 minutes, turn and burn in a way at Bigfoot. And then she would just tear down. She would. Her biggest thing was, I just want to make sure I get there and find it because you're running off a cell service, so you're not using your GPS on your phone. I loaded maps on basically a Garmin and then my GPS in my Jeep, and so she would plug in the coordinates, and hopefully it took her to the right thing. And then Candace had really good directions, and so she would do all three just to make sure she found these. And some of them are pretty remote and pretty on a dirt road going through a it's
You don't
out
want to break
there.
down out there.
No, you don't
Run
want
out of
not at
gas.
all.
You don't want to take the Prius
You're not
out
calling
there.
anybody.
Right.
So she just wanted to get there, get everything ready, so she feels comfortable to where she can like, okay, I can relax now because he looks like he's going to come in the next 3 hours. So she's a big triathlete, always training. So what she would do is she would have her tri-bike on the back and bring a trainer. And she got to be she's really well known within these 200s because all these aid station people would like all of a sudden see this girl like set up her bike
In the middle
and
of
then
nowhere.
she would do her basically a bike workout because she didn't want to go out. She would love to go out and run, but she didn't want to
Right.
miss me.
Yeah.
So this way she had everything ready and she'd be on her bike and I'd pull in sometimes and she'd just hop off her bike and she's just like, all right, and take care of me and get me
She
going.
soun's like the chronic overachiever.
Well, at least and
Oh,
it's
she's
lighter.
pretty
Right?
She's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
It's lighter than taking a treadmill too.
Yeah.
So run on while you
That'd have been
wait.
awesome. She'll pull up
Yeah,
the treadmill, right?
Extension cord
I
into a
think-
generator.
I think I complained enough about taking the trainer. I'm like, I do have a mountain bike that you
Right.
can use.
It'd be awesome if Ultra like kicked in a treadmill for next year for
Well,
you.
I mean, Cal, think about like, okay, you're running, right? So you've got all this planning, but if you're crewing, I mean, like you said, you
Oh my
got
gosh,
you'd
the
have to plan on
crewing would be
taking
so
food
stressful.
for yourself because you're not
Yeah.
going in and out of
She was
town.
doing 90-minute sleep cycles too herself.
Yeah.
So
That's so impressive.
That's like a whole just different dimension when you're talking about the running of the 200 is just the crewing. You
Yeah.
know, the planning. I got to take water for myself,
Right.
food for myself.
Yep.
Make sure my Kindle's got a backup battery.
My Kindle.
so I can read while I'm on my trainer. You know, God, that's insane. So when you're out in those races, I mean, you see a lot of stuff. Is it pretty normal for people to hallucinate throughout these races? I mean, because 100-milers, they do quite a bit. So I'd imagine these, even
Besides
with
the time warp.
besides the time warp and
people
different
talk
dimensions.
about it all the time. I actually get really jealous that I've never hallucinated.
No.
I mean, I'll get like, does that look like something like in the tree, or does
Oh,
that
yeah.
look like that rock look like something?
Is
and
that
then
rock a bear?
you know, you get closer and you're like, oh, it's just that, you know. But it's not like a full on like, hey, I saw, you know, Bigfoot, you know, for reals kind of a thing. You know,
reals, for
I
reals.
swear it
Like
was
you
Bigfoot.
sat down and had a conversation with Bigfoot.
Sharing your
The,
jerky.
the closest thing I got was this last one at Moab, and it was a form of deja vu. It was crazy. Nate Younger was pacing me through the LaSalle's, and we were going, and he's to help pass the time. He's entertaining me by basically retelling me some podcasts from Radiolab that he was listening to, and he was talking about these different things, and it just hit me all of a sudden, like the trail, his story that he was telling me, and I started telling him like, I've heard this story before, even though I've never heard it before. And I'm like telling him what's coming up next and all this stuff. And I'm like, this is the closest form of hallucination I've ever gotten, because it was such a real form of deja vu
Right.
that I was like, his voice, him behind me, pacing me, us running, like the headlamps, the trail itself. I was like, I totally have been here before. Like,
Did you freak out?
oh yeah, I was telling him. I stopped him. I was like, hey, Nate, I am seriously having the craziest form of deja vu right now.
That's another
like-
word for time warp.
It is.
Exactly.
See?
Someone, you know, I think it was my brother or somebody told me, it's like deja vu's explained to him that it's just that you know you're where you're supposed to be. Like deja vu
okay.
is in time. You are where you're supposed to be because everything's lined up.
That's the way the universe time checks you.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a time check.
Puts a timestamp
I'm like-
on you. You're good.
I'm like,
good.
I
Keep
don't
going.
know. I've been here before.
yeah, exactly.
This is crazy. That was like the closest thing. So I've never hallucinated myself, but that was by far like, I was like, all right, things are getting weird.
Things are getting weird.
That's awesome.
So give us advice. Joel wants to run a 200-miler.
Oh.
What kind of advice
Why are
would
you
you
doing
have?
that to me?
You did it to me earlier. So
Okay.
there's people out there listening that want
Yeah.
to do a 200.
Oh yeah, and
So-
there's so many people, especially even in our trail running group here
Right.
in the Wasatch and stuff, that are by far their talent exceeds some of the talent that's even out there on the
Oh, for
200s.
sure.
It's just that they got to get out there and just do it.
They got to wrap their head around
Well, I mean, let's look.
It's taking that leap of faith of just like believing in themselves that they could do it.
Well, the problem is if you've done a 100-miler, you know how much it hurts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you're trying to wrap your head around, how am I going to get through another 100 miles?
Yeah.
How is that possible?
It's like people saying run Wasatch 100 and turn around and go back, right?
They used to do that back in the day.
But that's what I'm saying.
Right.
Is like, but you look at it this way though: is how many people started off for their first 100 thinking it's. To me, it's like an evolution of things, right? Because it used to be the marathon at one point in time, then you jump into the 50, and they keep increasing mileage.
No, this is totally different.
But
this has got to be different.
Yes and no.
It is such. You're talking multiple day event.
Well, that's what a 100-miler is from a marathon.
Yes, but this is on. This is not like a linear progression. This is like exponential jump.
Well, I think
It is. It's so.
it is.
I don't know if you read Steve Lowry's or Phil Lowry's recap basically of
which one?
Bigfoot.
And he's like, you
did.
would think that a 200 would be just twice as hard because it's twice as long.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And he was just like, no, it's like 6-7 times as hard
There you go.
because it just incorporates not only double the distance but double the strategies, double everything, and it compounds basically. And that's true in a way. And I won't lie, it definitely is harder. But here's the selling feature, and this is what I kind of had to teach Mike McKnight in the first one. Was he was really down about his performance because he was getting really sick, and he was slowing way down from where he wanted to be. And I was like, Mike, and this is what I've told other people: you have so much time to recover.
Yeah.
Like in a 50-miler, you get sick, you're not gonna do nearly. You're gonna be mid-pack. You know,
Right.
if your stars don't align and you don't get through that race, you're probably gonna be mid-pack. 100-miler, you could recover and then you could work your way back up, but you're definitely not gonna be top 10.
Right.
200, you can have something seriously go wrong, have to pull and sleep like 6 hours or something, or try to recharge or get from having stomach issues and still pull off a top 3. If it all depends on their day too, everybody else's day. But
Yeah.
everybody in a 200 is going to deal with something.
Right.
Depending on whether it be physical, emotional, psychological, you're going to run into something, and that is part of the coolness of the race. Is if you are there to do well, don't give up.
Right.
You never know what's going to happen towards the end of the race. So about a 200 is just learning how to set that up psychologically, and don't let yourself beat yourself down, and then just kind of pick yourself back up. So in a way, I think a 200 parallels more of a life scenario, or like someone in your own life is like, if you're getting beat down and you think it's just, kind of over, there's so much more time, just pick yourself back up and you work through it. And I always call it like doing these races, kind of like peeling the onion away from you as an ultra runner or you as a person, is really figuring out who you are inside deep down. Because you really kind of just peel yourself away over those 3 days and kind of really get grounded on who you are inside, because you have to dig deep. So, I mean, and you come out wanting more. Phil Lowry's like,
he can't get enough now.
He can't get enough. He's like, I'm doing the triple next year.
Always had that problem though.
Yeah.
Where I think he has an addictive personality, and I think he's done a good job of like keeping it in check. Except for when he runs 100s, he does how many a year now?
But
A lot.
right?
just like if you gave him a dessert, or you gave him a meal that he hasn't ever tasted before, and he was leery about tasting it, but he's like, all right, I'll try it, and then all of a sudden now he's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, he was
this is
doing
my
he was
favorite food
doing
now.
100-mile races in between those 200-mile races.
Yeah, this year.
Yeah. Phil's got an addiction problem, and I don't think he's ready to admit it.
We'll admit it for him.
Yeah, exactly.
But-
We'll get him on.
and
We'll address that.
So that's a whole nother topic. I mean, we'll go back to that a little bit. But how do you train for your first 200 though? I mean, because
Oh man, that could be a whole nother show, right?
well, because it is. I mean, I get like from your
I'm
first.
the worst person asking me that. Don't
Okay,
ask
well,
me
so
that.
what was your training like?
Yeah.
Just normal.
Just jump
What's
in and do
normal
it.
like to you?
So Probably not any of the other races because you're in just recovery and taper mode.
Between races, it's recovery.
Leading up to it, probably on the average between 45 to the high 65 miles per week.
Okay.
That consists of usually 5 miles a day, no matter what.
Okay.
That's kind of like my baseline, and usually a Friday taking off and Sunday taking off, and then Saturday's usually an adventure.
Okay.
And I'm not the best numbers person. When I say distances, I can give you, that's my average distances, but I'm more about like terrain, psychologically having fun, keeping myself like some of the best training I did this year was one of my good buddies, Matt Gallen, basically saying, "Hey, let's go to the Wind Rivers just on a spontaneous trip. Let's go do Grand Teton. Let's go, up Rock Canyon. Let's go do Temp." And it's just pretty much you're not on trail. You're on trail for a little while, and then you're just off trail, and just kind of like climbing, hiking, having a good time. And it's just more of a psychological being in a good place. I watch so many runners so concentrated on the miles and the numbers and the time spent. By the time they hit that race, they're so burnt. Right. They are so burnt because they're so consumed with the miles. They're not having a good time. And then psychologically, even going into 100, if you're in a bad place going into 100, it's just like it's hard because your mood, your state of mind makes a profound amount of energy through your body.
Right.
And if something's tragic happens in your life, within your job, your family, your home, that could take the wind out from under your wings, in a way. So staying happy going into your race is a huge deal, And so I just mainly trained with good, fast people. Matt's crazy.
Yeah.
That guy's crazy.
Especially on the ridges and everything else.
And then just going out and having fun and just being happy, being happy with stuff and stuff like that. And what's around the next corner? What's over this, mountain? What's over this? And so you take that attitude into the 200s because the 200 is an adventure. It's an adventure. It's not just a race. It's a full-on adventure.
Yeah, so besides the 50 miles a week that you run, are you doing any other training?
Weight, swimming, cycling.
Oh yeah, so my first.
He's got some guns on.
Yeah, he's fit. He's fit.
He brought the gun show with him today, right?
So my first love has always been lifting, and actually it's been my biggest thing the last 2-3 years getting into ultra running is trying to take off the muscle weight that I worked so hard to put on earlier in life, and then trying to have a balance because for me it's a psychologically happy place for me, lifting weights. So I've just changed up my whole entire fitness routine, more like a CrossFit style.
Okay.
More of a circuit, but more with body weight, more lower weight, higher reps. So that I will always keep that about a 3-day a week.
Okay.
And then I do a lot of swimming for recovery. Swimming.
Oh, okay.
Me and Brittany, she's my number one training partner for sure. So we're always out on the trail together, and we're always out biking together and out swimming together and lifting. And so, and then I let her go with the girls, or I encourage her to go with the girls so that I can go with my friends too, sometimes on my adventures and stuff like that.
So you mentioned that your wife's a massage therapist. So how does that come into play with your recovery?
Oh, okay.
I mean, to us it's a no-brainer, but I just want to hear from you.
It's a new world,
right?
Learning muscle recovery, and so many people I'm out for the season because of my knee.
Right.
Well, I'm out, there's so much that happens to the body when things are tight, your gait changes, things are compensating for other things.
Right.
I've learned so much through her and working on that. A lot of issues you think you have are just more or less muscle imbalances that you develop because of the miles that you put on. There's no way. I can't even fathom the people that do put on 50-plus miles a week that don't get regular massages.
Right.
And I'm not talking about a foo-foo, fluffy,
No, we
you know,
what you're
massage. I'm
about.
talking about bring the house of pain. Like, I'm crying.
We
Like,
got a guy.
We got a guy.
We got a guy who does that for us.
And we talk about it all the time because we say it's a huge tool.
It's a
right?
huge-
It's just a tool. It's a
part of your
training
tool
tool.
set.
Yeah.
Right? It's not just running. It's not like swimming. It's not recovery. That's a tool you need in your
Right.
Yeah.
So I just want to
routine.
get your perspective on how you use that.
it's key. It's key. I like I said, you know, these pros. I don't think these pros. They have to have somebody. You know.
I think most of them do now.
Yeah.
Right.
I think there's unless
They're seeing somebody.
they're freaks of nature and their bodies are different.
Some of them
Right.
are, but they still I think would have to have that
and
tool.
if you go to the gym, if you were to see me at the gym every day, my first hour is rolling out. I'm on the foam roller and I'm on the trigger point ball. My
Right.
workout consists of about 35 to 40 minutes and about an hour of sitting on that ball or sitting on that foam roller.
Right.
So it's you know.
Do you have a home gym or you go to one?
No, I go to a gym up in Heber.
Okay.
I like the social community and stuff like that.
All right. Right on.
I like the
People watching.
foo-foo, not the foo-foo massage.
No.
not
no.
the
That's a
Groupon
waste
massage.
of time. It is. It's a total waste of time.
Well, because that's the thing is if I've done those before, like early on before I went to a real person, I'm like, oh, that's not bad. But then you go to like
you go
a
to
real
person,
massage,
Like a
and then you go
sports massage.
and then you go
therapist.
back to one of those, and you're kind of like,
You're like, what are you doing?
what's going on back there?
Exactly.
You're watching your clock going, I'm losing minutes here. And
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
like going over that same spot with
Yeah.
like your fingertips.
Yeah,
I can
exactly.
barely-
Like,
are
you
you
better get that elbow going.
Yeah, you're like, push harder.
Are you like drawing like have a string? Are you drawing pictures on my back?
Yeah.
Am I supposed to guess that picture?
Yeah.
It's a house
Yeah.
with a picket fence.
Yeah.
So would you or do you even think about running 50 milers, 50Ks? Is that kind of just
Yeah, it's fun. It's I like. It is psychologically. There's something that's happened. Okay, and I'll be honest with you. Like these 200 milers, it's a very kind of that addicting self accomplishment thing.
Right.
So I feel like a rubber band that's been stretched out, and to only get to that maximum stretch is like a 200 miler. So a 50
Right.
miler doesn't feel like you're stretching that rubber band really. So it kind of feels like I'll just do this little 50 miler. However, that being said, running a 50 miler and racing a 50 miler
Two
are
different things.
two different things.
Right.
Running 100 milers and racing 100 miles, two different things. A lot of Brittany comes from a triathlon background. A lot of triathlon friends. I have a lot of triathlon friends. And a lot of them look at me and they go, hey, so which one's harder, a 100-miler or an Ironman? Because I got to do an Ironman last year. And I was like, it's totally two different things.
Right.
I said, you may be able to compare a 50-miler with an Ironman
Right.
because of the time frame. You race an
Good point.
Ironman like a pro and get down into those nines.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard. You race it as an amateur and you get under 12. That's like kind of like that goal. Same thing with the 50 miler.
Yeah.
You race it like a pro and get down into those nines, or you race it like an amateur and you're just trying to break that 12-hour mark. And then it
Right.
all comes down to vert. How much
Good
vert
point.
does that have? Because
Yep.
so many people from the triathlon community ask me like, oh, what's your average pace? What's
Yeah.
your average this? I'm like, well, how much vert is
Yeah.
there
Right.
going to be?
Yep.
Am I going to be climbing? Am I
If there's a
gonna-
lot of vert, I'm faster in the race series than if there's less vert. If there's
Right.
more running, I'm a fast hiker.
Okay.
So
Gotcha.
like that's one thing I can do. I can run uphill and hike fast more so than most. But when it comes to the downhill and the flat, people blow by me because I'm
Right.
kind of like a unigear. Like a unigear bike. That rotation, that's
gear.
that's like all it is. It's like even going downhill at same
It's the same.
speed.
same cadence.
It's the same cadence. I'm not
Right
like,
on.
let's open it up. No, there's no opening it up for me.
you did that on the way up. Yeah. Right.
So are you doing the Triple Crown next year?
No.
No?
It's so there is the rumor, and it's pretty confirmed that there's going to be a Grand Slam
Oh.
in 2 years.
So what's
I think
gonna
I'll
be
hold
the
out
other
for
one?
that. It's so expensive for
That's
one.
me and
yeah.
Joe talk about that.
So expensive, and
That's
then
not a
so much
$200 entry fee.
commitment on
Yeah.
Brittany and stuff like that. This next year is more focused on her.
Saving
will-
your money for the
I do
following
have
year.
plans for something special this next year.
Nice.
That may work out, maybe not. But the next year when they do announce the Grand Slam,
Do you
that'll
know
be
what that
tempting.
What's
race
the
is gonna
difference
be? Do
between
you know
a
where that
Triple
race is
Crown
going
and
to be
a
at?
They think Arizona. She's been hit up
Oh.
prior by a race director that had a race that, and this is all speculation. This is
Sure, of
I
course.
could be completely wrong.
Probably not,
but,
though.
there was a race down in Arizona that was a go, and then something happened, and he had to pull out and give the money back. And then he reached out to Candace, and Candace had already had Moab, I think, in the works, and so she wanted to pull the trigger on that first, and
Right.
then she's kind of held this in the back pocket. And if you always look at her Triple Crown website, it's called Grand Slam of 200's.
What
So-
time of year would that be in
I would
Arizona?
imagine November
You think
because
so?
Arizona. You couldn't go July.
You couldn't do July, and they need to be close together. Unless to make it like a true back to back to back to back like that, it would need to be November. However, I guess she could throw it sometime in the late spring or early, sometime in the spring,
Right.
which would separate them. I think there is the difficulty level increases tremendously having those suckers back to back. So,
But yeah.
so I can't even. But definitely tempting to be able to have that self accomplishment of doing but that's expensive.
Yeah.
It is. So let's talk a little bit about the Moab race, and then we can talk a little bit about what you're doing next year. So Moab was new this year,
Moab brand new this year.
and she would put a lot of effort into that.
Yeah.
Kind of getting all set up. She was going out spring, scouting out the course, and then getting closer to the race, they were going out and marking it. And that kind of got my interest. It's like, this looks like a really cool course. And to be able to race that, tell us a little bit about what it entails. What was the terrain like?
So this is kind of like the love-hate relationship a little bit. So I hope if she listens to this, I know the difficulty of it to tie 238 miles of single track is almost nearly impossible.
Yeah.
After doing Bigfoot and Tahoe, Bigfoot by far the most amount of obviously single track. You just have the
Right.
road at the end. There's a little bit of fire road here and there in the middle, but very, very short.
Right.
I saw her dilemma of permitting and getting single track basically to tie each other. So there's a lot of fire road that ties different sections together.
And this is at Moab, right?
This is at Moab.
Okay.
So that was difficult from a trail running aspect.
Right.
It made it for a very fast race. If you have wheels on you, like if a Mark Hammond decided to do a 200, somebody that had running wheels, they would just dominate at Moab because there's just less single track.
Okay.
And even some of the single track, and even LaSalle single track was just awesome.
Wow.
It was just incredible. There's another little section that kind of felt like Olympus, like literally like you were hiking Olympus in one section. And then just a lot of fire road. And that kind of that's what made for the faster times.
Right.
Overall for the longer distance. But the beauty of Moab was just phonamenal. Like the red
was
rock.
that like distracting that kind of balanced out the fire road in a way?
If I've done Antelope Canyon, I've done Monument Valley, I've done Zion.
Wait, have you done those back in the day when they were 100 milers?
I did not Monument.
Okay.
Monuments though is a double loop.
Right.
So even the 50 you see everything, and
Yep.
then the second loop's at night.
Yeah.
So let me I'll just say that I've done the 50. for each.
Right.
I've done the 100 at Zion, done the 100 at Bryce. Grand Canyon 50. I've done all those races, and so it felt like I was in all those races, like the
Gotcha.
scenery.
Right.
So the scenery wasn't new for me.
Right.
I four-wheeled down in Moab a lot of times.
So it was kind of like, oh, just another day.
It
right?
felt like another race, just get her done.
It's almost like work at that point.
It
right?
was working and get her done.
Yeah.
There was some times, there's this one point, I was out with Andrea as my pacer, and the sun was coming up, and we found ourselves in this valley. I really thought I was in a John Wayne movie.
Oh,
Like,
awesome.
Love
it
it.
was the sun coming
Yep.
up on the red rocks on the side. I
Yep.
was in a actually vegetation valley with a nice ravine basically going through it, pretty deep ravine, sitting up on a shelf on the edge, red rocks on both sides, kind of like if you've ever done Zion Traverse, hot valley.
Okay.
So you kind of felt like you're in this hot valley, and I was just like, okay, this is beautiful.
Right.
That section was beautiful. I really liked Porcupine Rim
Okay.
that you do on mountain bike or on off-roading. That was really cool.
Mhm.
LaSalle's was just phenomenal. LaSalle's was like, all of a sudden, I felt like I was back at home.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like,
Once you got up in the mountains.
yeah, it was just like,
It's a lot better than being
thank
down
you.
the desert floor.
The whole
So
time.
I heard that course got vandalized a little bit.
Yeah, right. I heard there was two sections.
Mm-hmm.
Got vandalized up in LaSalle's.
Right.
The front runners some of the front runners got lost.
All right.
And some even the back people, I think a sign fell down, and Sylvia, which is a local,
Greeter.
she ended up doing like some crazy, like 15 or 16 extra miles. She ended up, the trail came out, and it was pretty much the exact same section as before that the front runners got. 2.5 miles out from the aid station in Uha Lake, you come out of a trailhead into a parking lot, and you're supposed to go right through the parking lot and into the next trailhead heading towards the aid station. And she ended up taking, I think, a left there and taking the fire road, or basically the service road.
Right.
The other people ended up, I think people actually took time to change the arrows and change some of the flagging. Like,
Jeez.
they really purposely
That's
changed
like a criminal
things.
act.
It's
there.
pretty messed up.
Yeah, it is. That is. So how does she safeguard against that? Because you
I
know
don't
that's
think you
going to
can.
happen.
You can.
Yeah.
I mean, does she have people going out and checking the flagging?
So once it's reported, so there's these two guys that work for her. I mean, those guys by far, I want to know how many miles they put in
Right.
that week besides marking it.
Right.
I've almost every race I've seen them deep into the race with a ton of gear,
Right.
with flags, remarking stuff that got either
Right.
vandalized, taken down, and stuff. I saw them at Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see them at Tahoe this year, but they had to do it last year. Last year, a huge section got taken out by a bunch of horseback riders. And the only way that I was able to find my way through is I had the GPX downloaded on my watch.
Okay.
And I was following it.
Right.
So there's a lot of people running in circles coming back. I don't think
man.
that's the way and stuff like
Oh
that.
my
And
gosh.
big pack of us.
That's such a mind game at that
Yeah, it
point.
does.
Oh.
Like you need that much more.
150 miles in. That's how far Uha Lake. You're about 150, 170 miles in. You're just it's hard to, even at that point.
Right.
I was with Nate, and I was telling Nate, I was like, we just got to get that aid station because for some reason my brain wants to turn off. It's time to go to bed.
Right.
It's like my brain wants to turn off. So it's like, I can't even imagine following the wrong flag and how, just, you might as well somebody kicked you in the balls or
Right.
something
Oh,
like
yeah.
that at that point.
So speaking of GPX, so it seems like now people are, I don't even know what the app is called.
Gia?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Did you use that?
Yeah,
That you
it was
get that
kind
on
of
your
like
phone,
highly recommended for us to load it
right? Okay.
on our phones just in case. I used it in one section.
Okay.
Where they rerouted a route, and so my watch was taking me a different way.
Oh.
and the flagging was taking me another way. And then we got the GPX file out, but even the GPX file was still the old way.
Oh,
luckily, I asked one of the I just followed the flags. The flags were so well marked and so predominantly marked. I just kept following the flags.
okay.
But yeah, it led us a different way that I think they just didn't get the permitting at that time. But yes, very great app. You load the GPX file in it. It downloads the maps in those areas of the and it's available offline. It's a game changer.
Right. And so you just put your phone in airplane mode.
Yeah, and just
Right.
GPS on.
Conserve your battery, and you just roll with it.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
That's cool.
I think I'd have to do that.
I like it on my watch.
Right? I would totally.
I would
really.
totally do that. I
So
like it
that's
on my
another
watch.
question. So are you carrying the little portable charger?
Yeah. So I got the Phoenix. I only had the Phoenix 3. I wish I had the Phoenix 5X because it has those maps on it.
Okay.
It's pretty dang cool.
Is it?
But the Phoenix 3, I load the GPX files in, and it points the way. It vibrates when I get off trail.
Really?
So if
Oh,
I
that's
get
cool.
off trail
That's
within
cool.
even in probably a couple 100 feet,
Right.
it'll vibrate and it'll tell me off trail.
Wow.
You know, and so I can take a look at the map to see where my arrow's pointing. So it does have maps. It just doesn't have topo maps like the 5X has now.
Okay. So are you carrying a map with you as well, like
No.
a physical map? Okay.
No, these are so well marked.
Are they?
It's so well marked. It's so you might talk about the spine a little bit or something like that, but the spine you have to take a GPS, you have to take your phone, you have to take
Like a
compass,
compass.
you have to take a paper map too.
Right.
You have to have all this backup, and then I load the GPX on my watch too.
Okay.
But I charge it on the go because of that. It's a nice grip to it, and I'll throw it in my pack, and it charges in about say 5 or 6 minutes. Or
Does it?
like about 5 hours, I think.
Okay.
It is. So between one aid station.
Right.
So
So you brought up the spine. And so the first time we heard about the spine race was through Canis.
Canis.
Right.
Yep.
And
Dom.
you guys were going to go over to England and run this crazy old race in the middle of the winter.
yeah,
Right? Last year.
it's pretty crazy.
Right?
Yeah.
So tell us a bit about that. And are you going to go back this year? So let's start with that.
Yeah, I'll just briefly, you definitely want to save that because there's so much to talk about on that one. So
Really?
yeah, went last year, took a crack at it. I actually got injured right in the very first 15 miles. My IT just flared up because I fell off. They have these stones that lead across the really heavy marshy areas.
Right?
That the government has kind of precast stones that they've put in. Well, there was another race the same day that we were running the spine that were coming against us.
Oh,
Oh,
great.
wow.
So they only had they were just wearing shorts, t-shirts, and they were going fast. It was a
Right.
shorter race, handhelds and stuff. And I kind of noticed that. But the first couple that passed by, they didn't really care to move over. They were in a hurry. And so we, as the spine racers, we have our huge packs on. We got
Right.
front packs on. We got our trekking poles. We're loaded down. My pack's almost just under 30 pounds
Oh
just
my
because of all
goodness.
the water and stuff I was carrying.
Right.
With the unknown, you're just in the unknown. Aid stations are about 45 miles apart from each other.
Mhm.
So I ended up stepping off one of the stones thinking I'm stepping on harder ground, went through all the way up to my hip in what they call a bog,
Ugh.
basically, and got stuck in there. I'd actually have racers pull me out. Well, it kind of kinked my hips,
Right.
and within 5 miles going, my IT was just flaring up.
Right.
So 15 miles in, I ended up going 200 miles of the race.
And how
So-
long's the race officially?
Race is 7 days. It's 268 miles.
Right.
Goes from Edale, Edale, E-D-A-L-E. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it right. England, just south east of Manchester, and then it heads up and along the border of Scotland and into Scotland.
Wow, that sounds awesome though.
It by far.
My car.
Well, some of the aid stations are in the pubs, right?
Yeah.
We talked to Candace about that.
That's right.
That would be the hardest thing for me, leaving the pub.
That's what it would be.
Right?
Fish and chips and a
exactly.
beer.
You just crush like 2,000 calories, and then you got beer in your stomach. I'm good, fellas. Here's my
Go
bid.
back out in the rain, the wind,
Yes
and the
no.
cold.
I'm gonna stay in here.
I'll be in there singing songs.
Yeah.
So yeah.
What's your football song here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I am going back this year. My feet ended up blowing up. I made some critical mistakes with my compression sleeves and didn't take them off. I think it held fluid in my feet when I'd sleep.
Oh yeah.
They got bigger and bigger.
Right.
Each time I took a rest, and I got to the point where even with my ultras with the foot insoles taken out, my laces totally undone, wouldn't even fit into my shoes. They're
Oh
just
my goodness.
huge.
Fred Flintstone
And that's
stuff.
what
Yeah.
it was crazy. And so that's what pretty much killed that race.
It wasn't
So
your hip. It was your
it
flippers.
slowed me down.
Your
Like
flippers.
Yeah.
by the time I pulled out of there, I should have been done by the
Right.
time
But I'm getting the sense that you're rather stubborn,
yeah, you.
right? I mean, aren't you getting
Yeah,
the same
for
thing?
sure.
Okay.
I'm rather cheap. You pay all that money to go there.
Good point.
I'm finishing this race. I
Yeah.
paid for this thing.
Yeah.
My money's worth it. I'm going to finish.
That's right.
That's
So-
awesome. So you are going, that's in January?
That's in January. That's my next venture right now.
Is anybody else going from around here?
Canis is up in the air right now. He got invited to be on a pro adventure series down in New Zealand or
I'm
something.
going to recommend he not do that.
Yeah, he's just
but
recovering.
he's still recovering. And that
Yeah.
too. He just ran his first run
I saw that.
just the last week. It's totally up to him.
But he doesn't have that luck. Like he's got bad luck with those now, right?
He does.
I don't
Last
know.
couple, I think.
I
he's,
think just at that point you just call. I'm retired. I'm done.
I
I almost cracked my skull open last time. Maybe I should retire.
Maybe the third time's like Shimer's just going to take it or something
Yeah.
like that. I don't know.
It can go either
Dom's
way.
going back.
Oh,
of course.
It's still up in the air. I think he's just going back for another. He's trying to do a sub 24 on that Challenger.
the other race.
I really want to see what he can do, stepping it up and doing the longer distance and giving some of those front runners a real run for their money on.
Yeah.
Because he has wheels. That
Yeah.
guy.
He
is
does, and he's super analytical about it.
Oh yeah.
Super, right?
Oh yeah. When I was explaining before, the biggest thing that you got to remember is there's so much time. Like, so if he runs into any issues, he just needs to remember there's so much time in this race. So much can happen.
Right.
So, hang in there and stuff like that. So most of the time, some of the faster guys with some of the faster races, and they're trying to place in the top. In the top, it's like little things are deal breakers.
Yeah.
So, with this being such a longer race, I mean, that's just all it is just takes experience and a little bit of psychological of just like hanging in there and having fun with it, and then just the wheels on him, he'll pull it off. Might as well take both of them. Might as well have the FKT on both of those.
There you
Yeah.
go.
So,
Own them both. That's awesome. So that's in January, and then you're kind of just taking, besides something fun, you're going to kind of take it off, let your wife kind of do her races next
so
year.
she has a couple of triathlon. She's going to do probably St. George with some friends, and then we're trying to pick out a full. The funny thing is I say she, I always end up getting roped into them too. So that if I pick out a full, that means, or she picks out a full, it means I pick out a full too.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's kind of like keeping my training up while not racing.
Racing.
The big thing, throw this out for the listeners and some of the people to think about, because it's not a for sure thing, but I'm putting it in the works, is I've always wanted to run Wasatch, but Wasatch runs on the same weekend as Tahoe. So why not run them both?
Oh.
So
Wait a minute. How are you going to do that?
Okay, so think about it. So Wasatch starts at 5 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
Mountain Standard Time, which
Right.
is 4 a.m. Pacific Standard Time.
Okay.
Okay.
So if I'm trained up, I grind it out and just keep myself not going crazy fast, but turning out a good Wasatch. I'm even trying to say 28 hours.
Okay.
If I can pull out a healthy 28-hour Wasatch, basically, you're finishing right there with 4 hours past. So it's like an 9 a.m. Saturday morning finish. So
Okay.
now we're 24 hours, because Tahoe starts at 9 a.m., which is
On
10 a.m.
Saturday.
here. So you're at 23 hours into Tahoe. you finish Wasatch in Heber, not 2 miles away from the Heber airport.
You've really thought this through.
So I have a few friends that have access to some fairly faster private airplanes.
Hill Air Force Base got an F-15.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Right, get the F-35.
No, that's Phil has that access.
Yeah, right.
Phil's second seat behind
You just
some
gotta
like
rope him
Tomcat
in.
or something
Yeah.
like that, So I load up, take a nap, eat, whatever, throw the Normatec boots on,
Yeah.
fly into Truckee, have a crew there waiting, pick you up at the airport, take you to the starting at Homewood, hopefully not too much more past 24 hours past the start. So they're 24 hours in. Basically I figure aid stations are picked up from some of them.
Yeah,
Right.
early ones.
The flags of the sweepers are coming in.
Right.
So I talked to Candace. She says that there's some legal issues that she needs to like address to find out if it's even possible.
Good point.
So basically, I pick up my spot tracker
Mhm.
at the starting. I go, but I'm on the same time start as everyone else.
Right.
So my average time, mid 70s for a Tahoe with issues. I mean, I've had issues. Like I had 12 hours of issues this last year at 71 hours. So if healthy going out of Wasatch into Tahoe and just sit at that grind and have my crew as the aid stations
Right.
until I catch
The cutoffs.
the sweepers.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's probably not going to happen until the last 50 miles.
Right.
If it's going to happen.
Which is a great goal, right?
And then to make it legit is to catch the final cutoff of 100 hours
Right.
and finish it by Tuesday at, I think it's like 1 p.m. or something
Okay.
for Tahoe. I mean, to make it so I did Wasatch and I did Tahoe in the same weekend.
Okay, you just upped Jared Campbell. I'm sorry.
I don't know.
He's wanted
not
to do, he's
even,
wanted
not
to do
even.
Wasatch loaded you.
That I cannot wrap
And
my
I
head
can't
around
wrap.
that.
So this is like a whole
Well,
new
this is,
realm.
I mean, loaded J is 2, right? 200?
Yeah, but you're
You're
on
on
a
a
bike.
bike.
Yeah.
And you're only going to Logan.
You're only in the same state. You're talking about getting on a jet and flying out and starting 24
So,
hours after everybody else.
The hurdle, obviously, I have to go into the lottery like everybody else. So I have
There's
to
the
get,
hurdle.
I have to get drawn. The
Okay,
next hurdle.
You're gonna listen. Anybody that sits in that seat right there,
Yeah, they get drawn.
they get
drawn.
drawn.
We get
Okay.
people sit there.
There you go.
They get into Hard Rock.
Yeah.
They get into Western States. They get into Wasatch.
don't worry, we got you
We
covered.
got you covered.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So you're in Wasatch.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I just think awesome documentary, if it works out. Awesome. I just think it's so stupid.
It is.
It's so stupid. It's awesome.
Well, just make sure
the,
that
the logistics are going to be.
the tough part.
That's going to be the hard part.
Just
Yeah.
make
And
sure-
it might not happen. It might
right.
not
Yeah,
happen.
Candace might not be able to get over that legality
But
of
just
letting you catch up after the race has started.
Unless I just have my own spot tracker and I, what do you call it?
Bandit, kinda?
Bandit run it.
Yeah, but
Just
then
ma-
that brings up the issue. Are you going to use that once you catch? Are you going to use the aid stations, or are you just going to use crew then?
well, he's already almost there. Well, you can
Well,
do
I
either
use
or.
crew in the aid stations up until the time that I can.
Catches them.
Yeah, but
It-
if you're,
whatever the
if
race
you're a bandit
rule-
runner, though,
I still follow the rules
yeah,
because, in my mind, if nothing happens to me, all goes well, and if she just kind of wants to kind of like stand away from it and
Right.
not have any legal issues,
Right.
I just run it.
Yep.
And then nothing happens, and I catch, and I finish, and everything's good. I pay her the entry fee, maybe, and get the buckle.
Pay as you play.
all right.
You go into the aid station, you pay the menu.
I think that's a great idea.
Just make sure.
I
on
just
that-
think, that's
I like the idea.
I do too.
Just make sure on that plane there's more than peanuts and pretzels, though,
Yeah,
for your drive
those
over.
little
Hamburgers.
mini water bottles.
Yeah.
there aren't gonna be
sliders, a
enough.
bunch of sliders.
bunch of
all
Yeah, there you go.
over.
Yeah,
Man, I mean, you've already got it, some of the dialed in. I bet you could make it happen.
yeah.
You
You
know,
just gotta
some of
get in
that-
the Wasatch.
I had to
Yeah.
get into Wasatch, and
And
then
then-
because Wasatch doesn't have to worry about anything. I
No.
mean,
No.
I'm just running it and
Just
then
doing
leaving.
that. Yep.
And
Thanks,
so-
guys. I got to go.
yeah, pretty much.
and
Say,
then
hurry up, print that plaque off.
and survive. Obviously,
Yeah, exactly.
Hopefully, it's
Don't
not
blow
a
up.
super hot year. It seems like we're about time for a storm, or
Yeah.
something.
That's a good point.
Something cooler weather because they keep having these hot Wasatches. So
Right.
knock that out and then make my way over there and grind out grind it out.
There you go. See, that's what I'm saying. People keep setting the bar. So you got 100
Well,
to
what's-
200s. Now
What's
you got,
Scott Jaime say? As you get older, you gotta go longer to stay relevant,
yeah,
right?
that's what he says.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're a grinder.
Yeah.
Right? So it's right up your wheelhouse. I
We're
like
not going
that.
out there to win anything.
Team
I'm
grinder.
just grinding.
I like
'Cause
team
I'm
grinder.
I'm a grinder. I'm not fast.
Man.
I'll never be fast.
At what point is it going to be enough?
I don't know. FKT,
Because that's kinda
FKT
harebrained,
on
right?
the AT or FKT
Oh
on
my
the PCT.
gosh.
I don't know.
Running home
I can't
from
even think. I
Bigfoot
can't
with
even.
200.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't even think about something like that. Like the AT just makes my brain hurt.
Yeah.
So here I had a question. So in between the events, what are you doing?
Between the
Recovery-wise?
200s.
So between
Going
Triple
like
to the
Crown.
gym,
just normal.
going to the pool,
Getting a Jamba Juice.
going on group runs.
Just
so
hanging out.
nothing's changing really.
You got to
No.
recover.
You're-
I'm
Vol-
recovering
is your-
right now.
is your
I
volume the
have a foot
same?
issue right now that I developed at Moab, a little tendon issue. That's just I just need to let it heal. So I'm not running right now. I'm just doing gym stuff.
Right.
And then
But in between the events, is your volume the same?
Between Bigfoot
oh,
and
no.
Tahoe.
There's
What do
like I might run like so between Bigfoot and Tahoe.
Right.
Basically, I ran like maybe 25 or 30 miles total.
Okay.
Between Tahoe and Moab, I ran 10.
What's
one
the time frame
The
between
Saturday before.
Bigfoot and Tahoe?
I feel like
Downhill.
3.5
It's
weeks.
like all downhill.
Is it 3.5 weeks?
Yeah, between
3.5 weeks between Bigfoot and Tahoe.
Okay.
4.5 weeks between Tahoe and Moab. So you think about it, it's just over like 60. It's like 63 days or 64 days
Okay.
from the start of Bigfoot
Mm-hmm.
to the finish of Moab.
Right.
So,
So-
64 days, 645
So a little over 2
miles.
months.
So why don't you like do the triple, like run Bigfoot, rest, and then run to the Tahoe start, run that race.
Run to the Tahoe.
And then
I
run
thought
to the
about riding
Moab.
my bike. I've actually thought about that, like riding
Telling you, see?
my bike
You
with
see
the
this guy
trailer.
right here? Oh my gosh.
Show up at the because they'd bus you from the finish line to the start at Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Right.
Run it, just do my like, and then get on the bike and ride back to Utah.
Might as well. I mean, God, what else
I
are you
thought
gonna do?
that passed through my mind.
It's not like you're running
Am I
between
excited
those.
about an idea like that? Not yet.
I don't know. That's just crazy. So see, there is more. We're sitting here talking about how crazy 200s are, and then he's chucking out 100, 200s.
He's like, oh, I'm going to do the 300 weekends.
Yeah.
No big deal.
Yeah, it's just just a couple days, and then
Yeah.
when I'm done, I'm gonna jump in Lake Tahoe and cool off.
And swim across it.
and then
Bikes,
there's a
just-
triathlon.
biking, you tighten up those hips so
Yeah.
much to ride that
Mhm.
far, and then, you would definitely need some massage work and some a little bit of a rest and maybe even a chiropractor before you start Bigfoot.
You could probably have access to those.
Oh my God.
Unless you're just homeless on a bike, that that guy that just goes around everywhere, and that's just
You don't want to be that guy.
I don't want to be that guy.
No, because they got long beards, not trimmed and everything.
know,
They're
I-
kind of gnarly looking.
True.
It was gnarly. I had to trim it down. It was getting crazy. It had a mind of its own for a while.
Yeah, because somebody,
Well, who was it? Was it Logan or Brad?
Brad, you have a they call you a nickname.
Oh, he calls me Bald Jesus.
Yes, that's what he called it. Yep.
Bald He's
Yep.
like, because we talked to him, he goes, "Oh yeah, Bald Jesus."
Yep.
I don't know where that came from.
Well, man, just crazy.
I have a lot more questions, I think. I just don't know where to start.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole thing, because you have a question, which
Right.
turns into 5 more questions. It's
Exactly.
like this family tree. It just keeps
Mhm.
branching off into more.
We could always give
Crazy.
Turtle a run for his money and just keep inviting me back.
Well,
I
that's
think
easy
so.
to do because you got spine coming up, right?
That's true. I want to talk to you after
Because
the
that's
spine.
totally different.
He's gonna have to start stressing about his
He'll be on the he'll be on the horn with us right after the show.
Oh,
Hey
you
guys,
know.
I'll be in town.
Exactly.
I gotta
I'm bringing tacos.
Yeah, oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, we definitely want to have you back on because there's just so much more to talk about. Not just with 200s, but
Yeah.
with everything else, right?
Yeah,
I
after
mean,
the spine, that'd be cool. Go up to the Park City Run Company.
Yeah, we love hanging
Sit
out
down there.
yeah.
We love it up there.
It's good fun.
Yeah. And you got your shiny Tahoe 200
Yeah,
buckle on
that's
today.
awesome.
That's
That
last
is
year's.
awesome. That's
Mhm.
last year's?
Yeah.
That's
And I
awesome.
like the shirt. That's such a good color
This guy's
scheme.
Moab 240.
Mm-hmm.
And so is Ultra. You got the shoes, you got the hat.
So I'm an Ultra ambassador.
I like those shoes. What
These
shoes are
are
those?
the XTs. They're CrossFit shoe,
Ooh.
gym shoe. It's
Right.
real stable. I'm in love with them actually.
Okay.
My go-to trail shoe for my 200s is my Paradigms. It's actually a Maximus road shoe.
Yeah.
If you look at most of their elitists running they run, depending on the terrain, but if the terrain's not too crazy, most of their elitists are running in the Paradigms.
Yeah.
It's just, and I've never had traction issues in it.
Right.
So I've done I did it all in Paradigm except for probably about 60 miles of Bigfoot I did in the Timps.
Was that the steeper section?
There's a steep section in the water crossings that I was concerned about.
Slipping or something.
But
I
60
switched
miles.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just pittance.
Yeah.
It's not very
Just
far.
had time to tie him and pick him off.
Exactly. Oh my gosh.
Man, that's
something
crazy.
else, man.
We were excited to have you on. Just the 200 thing, I still don't understand, but at least gives me a little more perspective, I guess.
You guys will eat it up.
No.
No.
I'll eat up 11.
pace you.
He's looking right at Joel.
I
I'll
know,
pace you.
Thanks. Well, I've got this harebrained idea for next year too, but I'm not going to talk about it because I
You
think
talk about it, it has to happen.
Well, no, then it's bad luck. I think for me it is.
Really?
Yeah. So I'm going to keep it down low, and then at the end of next year, maybe if I accomplish it, I'll talk about it.
I have to throw something out in the universe enough times that it's like, okay, I've told enough people.
Yeah.
I'm kind of suckered into it now.
Gotcha.
So,
Fair enough.
saying it on a podcast pretty much ropes me in.
Yeah.
What do you think about doing a 200 no pacer, no crew?
Yeah, that is something I want to do.
Right.
Just show up, drop bags.
You take
just
care of yourself.
Do it. Yeah. Doesn't sound as appealing because I absolutely psychologically enjoy knowing that my wife is at that aid station.
Okay.
And if it's a sleep station, I'm gonna crawl up into my tent.
All right.
And it's super comfortable, and it just
Get a rib pop back in.
It makes me happy.
know,
So
right?
like that whole, that'll be definitely a whole spine. No pacers.
Right.
You could only see your crew at the aid stations this year, and
But your crew might be pissed drunk.
Lit up at the
Right.
pub.
That could be a problem.
If I crewed you at the spine,
That
don't
would
count
be
on me.
fun.
Don't count on me,
Right?
man.
Oh my gosh.
I'll be on top of the bar. You're like,
I'm not
yeah,
sure if
there's
I
my
want to see
guy.
that. Yeah. Yeah, that's my guy. Sorry, guys.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, we'll have you back on. 'Cause we want to talk about the spine, even this 200 stuff. There's just too much more to go on that.
There is.
Especially with Joel. He's almost there. I think after this show, he's close. He's really close.
Not at all.
I'll send you the
I
link.
need, my guns need to be as big as his. That'll be like my barometer, my marketer, right? I have to get to that point.
All right, then you have to work out in the gym then.
I'd have to find one.
Yeah,
you got to carry them.
That's
the problem.
I know.
You got to carry your guts.
Yeah, but
extra weight.
when you have your late in the race and you're hallucinating and you're having that pose down because that's where you're at psychologically,
pose
right?
down with a cactus.
You guys probably need to take a look at some of my pictures and see what the poses look like. It's
Dude, you're
usually
up there going, look at this.
It's pretty much the poses are like this, stress my face like I'm taking a dump or something like that.
So that brings up another question. So you're eating a lot. So what are you doing for bathroom breaks? Is it
I try
wherever?
I try to do aid stations.
Just hit holding that turtle in until you hit the aid station.
It doesn't. I don't know. I've never had
full on disaster pants like Chewbacca in the woods.
Tahoe. I had to go out. in the brush and it's leave no trace behind, so that you have to dig the hole, cover it back up, and then pack out a sandwich bag of your wipes.
Yeah.
So,
Your duty.
But other than that, I think that's one time. I time it pretty good. I've been pretty lucky.
You got
if you're kind of eating the burgers, a solid food, that might help a little bit.
Yeah, you know? or you might be spending more time in the woods.
Yeah, as long as you're not doing Beto's burritos or that type of thing.
Yeah.
Psychologically, you're pulling into the aid station, you start thinking about it. You're like, maybe I need to use the restroom here.
It's like driving the kids to Disneyland in a car. Next bathroom, 40 miles. Now we're keeping going.
No, that's true, right?
It is. It's like it's now or never. Next rest stop, 40 miles. Yeah, I got to go, Dad. Pull over. Well, right on. Congratulations, though.
Yeah.
I mean, holy
appreciate
cow.
it.
Such an amazing feat again. I mean, 225 hours, 53 minutes for what, 440 miles ish?
645.
600, yes, yeah. Because I forgot about the twos, not the ones, right? I'm
Yeah.
looking at your shirt 2 times. Yeah, that's crazy. So that's awesome, though. Congrats. You look great all the way through, even your photos. I mean, kind of smile on your face. Candace was posting a lot during the Moab race on social media. Been pushing along, chugging along. So
I like. I'm in my happy place.
that's what makes it even worth it even more, right? You signed up for it. Might as well enjoy it. And you're cheap,
that's true.
so you got to get your money's worth.
Good point.
You said that. So, well, right on. Congratulations. Thanks for coming down.
Yeah,
we'll
you.
definitely get you back on the show.
Thanks for having me in the bus.
Yeah, Studio 78 is running, so we're still good. It's still warm out.
Yeah, it is.
Relatively speaking. But yeah, we'll hope to get you on Spines in January. We'll head up to Park City Run Co. and hit you up there somewhere in the comforts of the Park City Run Co.
For sure.
Awesome.
All right, thanks again, Ben.
Hey, thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you for listening to the TrailManners podcast. We'd like to thank Ben Light for taking the time to come down and join us in Studio 78. We also want to encourage everybody to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at TrailManners, or swing by the website at trailmanners.com. There you can check out some cool swag, get yourself a beanie before they're gone, or you can hit us up on the contact page. Let us know what you want to see, who you want to hear, or even if you would like to be on the show. Until next time, this is Eric Manning with Joel Hatch reminding you, you don't get what you wish for, you get what you work for. Now go get it.